This and you're very confident in it. So, which I don't mind. I don't know what you're basing it on other than faith.
So that's a fair question. I think there's a couple things here. And I think the first thing that I'm basing this on, and I believe this to be true because I've done the research on it. Coming into college, Nebraska has had more talent than most of the teams in the Big Ten, save like Ohio State. And honestly, they're pretty close to what Michigan's recruiting profile was under Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh wasn't recruiting the lights out. He got the right guys for what he wanted, but where it's been different is development once they get into the program and fitting guys into systems that work. If I believe in what Coach Rhule is about, then to me, there is a natural leap there from having good talent to having good results. I think the results have been more of an outlier considering the talent than vice versa.
You're talking about with just this staff.
I'm talking about across staffs.
I'm not real comfortable with that.
That's fine.
Only because it's different.
It's different, but that's kind of what I mean though. Is like I don't think the talent. I do think the talent in Nebraska this year is better than it has been under some of the previous staffs, but I don't think the talent has ever really been the issue to keep Nebraska from being an 8 or 9 win team. Now there's a gap between them and Ohio State and the top of the conference and the top of the country in terms of talent, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about getting to a place where I'm sitting at 9 wins. And honestly, they should have had 9 wins last year.
You know what so there's two things. Number one, what I think you're undervaluing
Okay.
is consistency. I was a little surprised how you weren't dismissive, but we're just assuming.
If
And
I
I'm
think this staff
and
is good at what they do,
and
then
you have to pay attention, in my opinion,
Mhm.
to what ailed them a year ago.
Mhm.
And it was clearly lack of consistency.
I agree. I agree.
So
Here's part of why that's a fair point to bring up. Here's part of why I've got more faith the consistency will be better this year with largely the same staff, although there's a lot of new faces. And this is going to sound bad, and I don't want it to. I think
you're in control of how you want to say it.
I think there were too many older guys that were used to inconsistent play.
That's fair. That's not. I mean, that's fine.
I think, and this term's probably too strong. I think purging some of that out of the program is beneficial in terms of the consistency.
So this is strange.
Even if you're going to miss them in other areas.
But do you know why I'm really why I'm more optimistic than not?
Why?
Is because and we didn't agree on this discussion either.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fruitful. I think Dylan's room for growth, independent of Holgerson, is monumental.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Because I want you to, for as good as I think he is,
mm-hmm.
and for what I think he's capable, there were just stretches where
he didn't play very good last year.
We just didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's way better than that.
There's an entire part of his game that he was just bad at last year, and that was deep balls. And he's good at those. I've seen it.
So it's funny you bring that up. I was talking to one of the guys that I trust, and we were. Did I talk about this on air about missing deep balls versus not missing deep balls?
I don't think so.
I kind of think I did because I wanted some help on the game in which we missed the opening deep shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Iowa, right?
I believe so.
The play to Lloyd,
mm-hmm.
and we overshot it. And I got into you got to take the gimmies.
Mm-hmm.
So this discussion all goes together. Like I think he's if you take the gimmies, and I don't mean necessarily just the 3rd and 6s. I mean a guy's running wide open and it's a deep shot, man. Put it on him and make it close.
Mm-hmm.
Make it a close miss. This, again, sounds crazy. Just trust me on
mm-hmm.
this. Where you're encouraged that I just got to do, and I can make this place. 50-50, give me another shot at it. When they aren't close,
you don't want to go back to it.
You lose confidence.
Yeah. Like when you have a guy running wide open and Dylan underthrows him by 10 yards, he has to come back for it. It ends up being a 50-50 ball. You don't really want to throw that again because that feels like an interception.
No. You lose. It's demoralizing as a player.
Whereas if he's got Lloyd running open and he throws it and it's right off the fingertips, you're like, oh, I'm right there. Let's call that again.
Let's call that again.
Yeah. It's a different thing. So I get that for sure.
And there's this part where it's like, okay, 2,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Year 2 of just confidence, familiarity, and you combine that with being better up front, which I think they will be. You'll have more consistency in what you want to do, what your command is. I think he's got to go through it. And so what I'm excited about, which is backwards, is he's already been through it. He's been through the bottom portion.
He struggled through it.
Right.
And then he came out the back end.
Like, that's the part I'm encouraged
Because by the end of the year, he was playing well again.
Because he's really talented. So I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And I also don't worry about his mental makeup.
Sure. He was pretty much raised for this.
That's what's exciting.
Sure.
I know he's talented, and I know he's mentally tough. Those two things alone should be like, So their room for growth, his room for growth, is enormous.
This is exciting.
Then you put him with Coach Holgorsen and Coach Thomas and Coach Raiola in that offensive line. Then I can get to this unified bunch. But I'm talking about just on. So that was my whole thing, and I probably maybe didn't word it as well then. But that's why I'm saying I get where you want to make it a chicken or the egg thing, but I think you can clearly talk about his growth independent of Coach Holgorsen.
Oh, I definitely think you can. I just also think you can talk about Coach Holgorsen independent of his growth. Like, I think you can do either side of the coin, but I think you're right about his growth. Like, I don't disagree with that at all because he is immensely.
I mean, there were some pretty I don't know if we're misremembering. There were some pretty dark times for this offense.
Oh, no, I know.
And it was there was some that was independent of SAT.
I
we put it on SAT, and rightfully so in some areas, but there were some stretches where
Dylan just need to make throws.
With Dana too.
Yeah, where Dylan just need to make throws.
And it's like, okay, that's not really a coaching thing. That's just a young freshman QB who's got 500 snaps that's learning on the job.
Yeah.
And a pretty tough conference.
Absolutely.
So I think if you're going to be encouraged by anything, it's like he's just going to be better. He's just naturally going to be better.
Absolutely.
Because he's a better player.
This is the reason I got so mad about the DJ Lagway thing a few weeks ago, right? Is you give me DJ Lagway stats and you give me Dylan Raiola stats, and I look at those and I go, why are people talking about DJ Lagway as not just the best sophomore quarterback in the country, maybe the best quarterback in the country, where I'm looking at Dylan Raiola, and I like my chances for him to take the lead as much as I do DJ Lagway.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it for making those jumps is you're talking about you got to go against an Altmaier, you got to go against Danico, you got to go against – I told you, I think Minnesota's got their quarterback. What we're talking about, the other teams are doing too. We'll see what happens with Gronkowski and Iowa City. But what we're talking about, those teams from a consistency standpoint are already ahead. And they're banking on their QBs to get better too.
Here's the other point, though, on Raiola specifically. I will take my chances with his talent over all but a couple quarterbacks in the league.
I'm probably in agreement there. I mean, he could be really good.
So if the ceiling is that high, I'll take my chances with the consistency reaching there. That's the difference between him and like a Gronkowski, right? Like maybe Iowa's consistency is going to get better, but if Nebraska with better talent can get to 90% of their consistency, I'll take my chances there. Kind of returning to this conversation about Nebraska and kind of why I have optimism here in a way that it seems like other people don't, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to. I do think there's an interesting question here because I talk about the D-line a lot. And one of our commenters, I lost who it was. I think it was Tony.
Josh. Was it Josh?
It was either Josh or Tony.
I responded to Josh because Josh said, do you want me to set it?
Yeah.
I said, hey, or I didn't say. I said, I have a hard time believing the D-line will be better than last year.
Yeah, it was Josh.
My response to Josh is, I agree, Josh, that it's a heck of a leap, but they do have more capable young guys than a year ago. I followed up with last year's D line should get the benefit of the doubt
Mm-hmm.
because they actually did it.
Yeah, we saw it.
We saw it.
We saw what it was.
We're hoping this year's team does.
Mm-hmm.
So I get like if Josh said, well, how it might be a two-pronged thing.
Yeah, there's a couple things there.
Right? Like, how can you say that guys that haven't done it will be better than last year? I'd say, you know what? You can't. That D line was pretty productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm counting guys like MJ Sherman, who I have sung his praises
MJ, Jamari
forever about the quiet job that he did playing like a fourth D lineman.
MJ was very good.
All those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same vein, I'd say let's say you're not ready to ascend this D line past last year's.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine because I wouldn't yet either.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would tell you, I do think they have more capable players to play this year than they did a year ago. Now we have to figure out, is that because they don't have two anchors or two menaces in the middle?
Yeah.
Or is it because it's highly competitive and you can just rotate?
Yeah.
That's what we don't know.
So there's a couple things there. One, I understand the question. I do.
Like the pause, you mean? Like
the hesitation.
Yeah.
But here's part of my problem is I can't just say better or worse because I think that's way too broad in having this conversation. Because, and I've brought this up before, and it's ironic because it sort of goes into the conversation we're having about like Iowa and Minnesota. Last year's D-line, I think, was very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You could kind of count on what you were going to get from them. So that's one. I'm going to put that over on the side here. I think this year's D-line can be more disruptive, right? So if you're weighing those two things against one another, it's hard to say because it's an apples and oranges discussion to me of consistent defensive line play of, hey, I know my guy's going to be in the right spot all the time, and he is probably going to make a play versus, hey, there's some guys this year that I think can ruin offenses' lives.
Are you getting into philosophy?
Part of it, yeah.
Okay.
I think Butler's going to be way more aggressive.
Okay.
I think they're going to get really creative with some of the pressures they bring. And I think the guys that they're going to play this year have some explosive and disruptive abilities that are maybe greater than some of the guys they played last year. Because I would say the most disruptive guy they had last year in terms of being in the other team's backfield maybe was.
It had to be Ty. Don't think like twitchy.
No,
moves.
I know.
It was Ty.
Ty got in there the most.
He was disruptive.
Right? And if you want a second guy, it was probably Jamari. Fair or foul?
I'd have to.
But he was not.
I'd have to kind of dive.
Fair.
He was so inconsistent.
So that's the thing.
All right. I didn't always get the Ohio State Butler.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I like the Columbus Butler.
For sure.
But he did tell me in pregame. Like, I remember.
But he was banged up a lot too, right?
He said, I feel good.
So that's the other thing with Butler is, okay, I've got a guy whose health wasn't really there for a lot of the year, even if he was playing through it. And now instead of just having Ty and some guys whose health I wasn't sure about, I've got Riley Van Poppel, who I think could be very disruptive. I don't know if he's going to be as consistent as Ty next year, but I think he'd be very disruptive.
You know how you could land the plane, though?
Sure.
Because I think I know what you're saying now.
Yeah.
You're pitting their athleticism and depth with the schematics.
Yeah.
Like, you think they'll be on the move more.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up in the other team's backfield.
They'll be able to do more than just probably
hold up at the line of scrimmage, which, don't get me wrong, that's very important.
Yeah, which would stand to reason with a McGahee and a Shavers, and you've heard coaches talk about playing the strengths. Keona Davis
and Riley Van Poppel, even at a similar spot, is a little bit different type of guy.
Like, I would talk about, like, you like the potential for the development.
Yeah, and I think the development can be more disruptive than we've seen.
And Braden is a different D-line coach than Knighton, but let's not act like Knighton wasn't good at his job.
Really good at his job. I was a huge Knighton guy.
Knighton was way good.
When we were talking about White and Knighton, who was I more upset about?
No, I understand.
I was a big T. Knighton guy.
You said that from the jump.
Because I thought he was really good at getting a lot out of those guys.
Yeah.
and turning some of the guys.
And my pushback to that was don't be dismissive of White's consistency in terms of how they attack practice.
Fair. Totally fair.
Like that was kind of but a lot of people don't know that either. I'm just thinking like,
sure,
there's something to be said for consistency of scheme and guys understanding
what their
role is.
Absolutely.
Now, Nebraska wasn't near as versatile as I think they wanted to be or could have been, because what did I go back to what we kept hearing Coach Rhule say he wanted in a DC. I want an answers guy.
If it looks like this, and we saw that last year where it felt like Nebraska didn't have answers.
Yeah.
Like in Indiana, when it started to get a little sideways, didn't feel like they had any answers. Right? You didn't feel good about that at all.
Or the ability just of a second year of a guy with his players where you don't bounce back and forth in how you play coverage versus the same formation like you did in Columbus, which I went through ad nauseum
at the
on
time.
Twitter as like, hey, listen, this look, they played it this way.
Yeah.
This look, they played it this way. They needed communication here if you're going to play 3.
And they missed it.
And
that's why you end up with a guy running wide open and getting house calls.
I mean, I listened to the discussion because I do think everybody seems to be on the same page this year because they're saying the same things, and it's vastly different than a year ago.
Also,
affect the quarterback. I know what you're doing. You're going to affect the quarterback pre-snap. You know, I've intimated that I think Butler's going to be a pressure guy. They want to be multiple on the back end with their looks.
Like if I think Nebraska can live in the other team's backfield, I'll take that. And that's what I think will happen. That's what I think is going to happen.
We heard Coach Snow quietly. He got out in the first interview. Hey, on third down, I like what we did on first and second downs. On third down, we want to do this, where we show, and like he kept talking about the mugs and showing and disguising and getting in, getting out, affecting the quarterback. So everybody seemed to be on the same page early with how they wanted to play it. Like I understand and what you're saying, but you know what? You have to not tag it. It's in addition to you hoping that the development of the staff is where it needs to be too, to fit the philosophy of how they want to play.
No, that's the base for everything, right? Offense, defense, all of it. Because if that part's not true, none of the rest of what I'm saying is true, right? But I do look at that. I go, okay, I like the staff, the way the staff is developing, I like the way the staff's been put together, and then I look at the pieces that they've got, and I go, okay, if I believe that Phil Snow and that Terry Bradden and that all of these guys that they've brought in, Addison Williams and John Butler, are good teachers and developers, I like the pieces better.
Yeah.
I just like the pieces better in terms of raw ability. I mean, I've been talking about Keona Davis for 18 months at this point, right? That's a dude that I look at and I go, okay, if you match that guy with an NFL D-line coach who's seen what guys with his abilities can do and has gotten that out of those guys, I will take my chances with Keona Davis to be better on this defensive line and more disruptive on this defensive line. Let's not pretend like Nash was healthy at all last year.
Yeah.
That dude was banged up the entire time, and he held up incredibly well, but we got a watered-down version of Nash because of the injuries, right? So the only guy we're really, really talking about, and I know you throw MJ Sherman in there as well, you should, but the only guy most people are talking about is Ty. Like, that's the thing that we're scared of losing or of being gone. And that's fair. He's really, really good.
Yeah.
But Nash was a shell of himself last year because of the injuries. Jamari was hyper inconsistent, as we talked about. And then who else are we talking about then?
Judy.
Judy was really good, but he's back, right?
And
I get Judy.
You know, and there were some stretches where he went away, but you need him to take another step.
Yeah, you need him to be consistent.
Who else would we put in that discussion, though?
Of guys we're missing from last year?
Cam Lenhardt was missing.
And he's back.
Cam went through some stretches.
He did.
No, but
I get Cam Lenhardt, I get Keona Davis, I get Elijah Judy, I get Riley Van Poppel, I get
I'll take it.
Shavers and McGahee and McCullough and the old boy Georgia Southern, the
hyphenated Trent.
Marcus Trent or Watson Trent.
Yeah.
I just went through 8 and I'm not looking at a roster. And I know I'm missing a couple. Right?
You're hoping to get a healthy
I didn't even mention
Buddha.
Hoping to get a healthy Buddha. I didn't even mention the 5-star. And because I don't know what we're going to get out of him.
You're talking about William?
Yeah. I don't know what Enwinari looks like here, but that's a guy, at least physically, if you can get anything out of him, is superior to almost anything Nebraska's had.
Yeah, I'm in.
Like we're 10 guys deep, and I'm not even looking.
Well, so that part I don't have any problems
what I
with
mean?
because remember I said you're saying they have more capable guys. I've been on that from the jump.
Yeah.
Because some of these guys you get year 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
or
if
Lenhardt, you get year 3.
If TB is who we think he is as a D-line coach,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you're definitely cooking.
I'm just saying the D-lines in Kansas City were pretty good.
He appears to, and I love watch. I was just having this conversation with Jay Moore. We just went down to watch D-line.
Mm-hmm. What did I watch at the open practice last fall?
D-line.
Almost the entire time.
D-line.
I like those guys.
He's really good.
Have I brought up Mason Goldman yet?
Again,
that's a guy you like a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Like we're talking about.
I do.
I'm not even reaching that deep to get to my 9 or 10. That's why I sit here and I go, okay, if I can get 6 of those guys to play at a high level, I'm golden.
Yeah.
And I've got plenty of options, and I think plenty of those guys are capable. So that's why I sit here.
And you have an NFL mind where situationally they understand matchups.
Mm-hmm.
So they will use Shavers and McGahee
in positions where they can be successful.
Yeah.
And in highly impactful situations for the defense.
I didn't record it, but I remember when I went to listen to Butler speak, he talked about this sounds so elementary. So elementary. But Jay Moore doubled down on it in a different way.
Okay.
Butler said, I think one of the things to understanding a good defense is you have to know what each individual guy does well. And everybody's like, no kidding. He said, but then as a coach, what you have to do is be willing to allow them to do that, even if there's a little bit of conflict with how you normally like to do things.
Yes. And that's a point that
I thought about that for a second.
Most coaches don't do the second part.
I'm like, I wonder if that's what Coach Rhule is intimating when he talks about I want an answer guy with regards to how they play defense the first 2 years, where Nebraska just kind of did what they did defensively, and hoped for a better outcome. And that is zero shot at T. White, because I love Tony White,
and he did a great job.
And I think he's
really good at what he did.
I think he's pretty fantastic.
But Kobe actually brings up a good point here, real quick. Is Terry Braden's track record as a defensive line coach is better than Knighton's was when he brought him in.
Well, yeah, I agree.
There's no question.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a really good point.
I agree with that.
Like, he's got a better track record, and that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be better here at Nebraska. But if you're just going, we kind of did this with Butler too, where everyone was kind of underwhelmed with the Butler hire as defensive coordinator. If you would have taken those two guys' resumes at the time, Tony White
you're preaching to the choir.
John Butler,
I said Butler's resume. If we didn't watch the defensive backs in our estimation struggle, like we would,
or if we just had brought him in cold, if we had brought him in cold and taken his resume versus Tony White, you're taking John Butler's resume. You're taking Terry Braden's resume.
Yeah,
you just are.
And I'll say this. I know TK loves to talk offensive line, and he says, I hope Nebraska better be able to get pressure with 4. I don't know how realistic that is. Everybody wants to get pressure with just 4.
For me, it's 5.
But you can use 5 and still be very, very sound
without being compromised.
Everybody, you can be very sound on the back end with 6 in coverage.
If you can get pressure with, if you can get pressure with 4, you're a whole different level, right?
I mean, everybody wants that though. So I don't go to the absolute.
But if I can get it with 5,
if I can +1 you
consistently get pressure with 5,
I'm in business.
I'll sit there all day. I'll sit there with 5, getting pressure with 5 all day, because you don't really consider it plus pressure until you're at 6, right?
Yeah.
So I'll sit there with 5 all day and get pressure. If I can get that,
technically, because you have 5 blockers,
right? Yeah. So you're not really compromising yourself until you.
We misuse that all the time, but
the
that's
plus
fine.
Pressure.
I don't want to get in. Yeah, it's fine. But
But if I can get home with 5, I'll take that all day. And I think you can get home with 5.
Because you know what 5 is? 5 is winning one individual.
Yeah. You're going one-on-one at 5 spots.
You're
literally just winning one matchup.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Just win one matchup.
You want to win one matchup because eventually you have to keep a back end.
Yeah.
You hope.
Yeah.
Hey, we have to
help somebody, or you keep a tight end in or something.
So if you're winning individuals, that's 5. Your quarterback makes 6. Your running back makes 7. If he has to block,
all of a sudden you're playing 6-on-4 on the back end.
It's 6-on-4
instead of 6-on-5.
That's why I say it's 5
or 6-on-6.
Yeah,
yeah.
You can get 5.
Yeah, 5's total. And so I'm sitting here. I go, okay, I'll take that.
4 would be way myopic.
Yeah, 4 is how the Giants beat the Patriots, right? Like that's that's a totally different.
Yeah, he's throwing against 7 guys.
Yeah, he's going 4-on-7.
Yeah.
And they're still getting
even 5 on 7,
which is not.
But
ideal.
you don't want to empty.
No,
because you can't protect.
Yeah, you can't protect the 4 versus 5, so you have to go 4 versus 6. You're the 7, so you're going 4-on-7 on the back end, and you're never going to be open. I don't care if it's Randy Moss running back there. Never going to happen, right? Or Jerry Rice if you're me. But like that to me is why I sit here and I go, okay, I'll take the coaching.
Yeah,
I'll take the personnel. What does that leave me with? That leaves me with a defensive line that I feel great about.
Yeah.
So if to answer Josh's question, why I feel the optimism, long way around the barn, that's it. Tons of capable bodies, guys I think are capable coaches, and coaches that are going to put them in positions to be the most successful. I think, and again, this is not a knock on Tony White or T. Knighton, but I think that's why you saw some guys like Cam Lenhardt, who I haven't really heard anything bad about the way he goes about his business, where he kind of took a step back last year or had to take a back seat to some of the other guys. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he was always being put in the positions where he could do the thing he does best.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that he was always being put in the positions where he could be most impactful. It was, hey, how can you fit in to what we're trying to do? And he didn't always. Right? Yeah. So if I can think, okay, I really like Cam Lenhardt, give me that guy in position to be successful. I really like Willis McGahee, give me that guy in position to be successful. I think Shavers can just blow things up for people, put that guy in position to be successful. And we haven't even got to my favorite guy yet, Keona Davis.
Yeah, I'm not
shook. If you're talking about a guy that can win one-on-ones, give me Keona Davis.
And TK comes back with, I think I'm specifically just scared of SC, DB. No matter how much I think Riley is a bum head coach, he's really good against 5-man or greater pressure. Now, again, I love to talk football.
Sure.
Let's get inside the stats, TK, just real quick. And I get it. This is like a little football E. Number 1, he's always had a guy that can move in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So when a guy can manipulate the pocket,
that changes.
It changes the dynamics of getting a quarterback off a spot when you bring pressure. Number 2 is with higher level guys that he's coached, those hot routes and where to go with the football, he's really, really good at. Mm-hmm. No question. But he's had the best of both worlds. I don't know if Maivia is that guy this year, but it's not just the scheme, TK, that makes Riley pretty good at that. It's also the kind of signal callers he's had too. So,
and Maeva's not as a passer what some of those other guys have been.
No, because you do have to be accurate, and the ball does have to come out hot. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of know where you're going. But I can respect the discussion.
Absolutely.
Because it's a real thing. It's something we have to think about.
Schematically, right? He probably he probably shows the biggest problem for Nebraska if they can't get home with 4.
Yeah, it's, last year, some of the talk at State was like, hey, you guys got, you stop pressuring. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a stretch in the middle of that game where
you couldn't let guys run free.
And Jet, they kind of knew that's when they started going to Hill, and we were getting the ISO matchups and the ball was coming out quick. So then we had to adjust and we're like, we're going to try to play coverage.
Yeah.
So like the cat and mouse thing goes back and forth, but it's totally dependent on how your quarterback can manipulate the pocket too.
Yeah.
Right.
Which Jet was pretty good at.
Yeah. And some guys,
is pretty good. He's still
some guys we could play the exact same way and the same things could be open.
Yeah.
They just aren't going to see it, or they're not.
It's an area of the field where they're not comfortable throwing the ball, or whatever the case is,
There's
right?
a couple quarterbacks that come to mind, and some
I
of them
know
were supposed to be pretty good.
I know
but
exactly who you're talking about.
we just
Yeah.
I'm banking on.
There's guys that you knew, for instance, you could leave a section of the field.
And it's not even technically open. It's where are we vulnerable in this defense?
Yeah, it's the thing that you're giving up. Like,
Yeah.
so if I always do this because I used to help with some of the schematics when I was coaching basketball, right? So if I'm rotating on a defense, where can I leave the guy the most open, right? I want to leave the guy furthest away from the ball, so you have to have
if you're giving up the corner three.
Yeah, so you have to hit this crazy skip pass across all of my defenders, and then I've got plenty of time to recover, and you're probably not going to throw it anyway because the basket's kind of in the way if I'm sort of putting you in the corner. Like, there's a lot of things going on there, right? But you always say, hey, this is the thing I'm willing to give up because I think it hurts me the least, right? So that's what you're talking about with you're not leaving guys open, but there's sections of the field where you're like, hey, I understand we're vulnerable. I don't think he can beat us doing that.
Yeah.
Right? That's the $1 million equation is what is the thing I think I can leave the most vulnerable where I don't think they can beat me in that spot. And if Nebraska says against USC, hey, I don't think Maeva's good enough to get the ball out quickly enough that the 5-man pressure is going to be a detriment to us, then you're okay.
Or, again, super techie football, but not really. I mean, there's little variations you can do, right? Sometimes I can show press and bail. Sometimes I can be off and actually play man. Sometimes I can go 2-1 or 1-2 in terms of safeties. Like pre-snap, when they talk about affecting the quarterback, all that matters. Can I make 5-man pressure a 5-man pressure not look like a 5-man pressure? Believe me, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So that's why when
it's not just the guys, it's can you identify where they're coming from?
Yeah, and who gets the matchup?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
because if you think your hot route's one thing, but the pressure's actually coming from somewhere else.
The two most dominant performances we've seen in the season in the 2000s, in my opinion, not counting Sue.
Sure.
Came on individually putting guys in places where they could thrive, and that was DeMario Williams and Levante David. People forget about DeMario Williams. When he was an off-ball guy, it was like
disruptive,
just okay. As a pass rusher and a natural blitzer going against O-linemen then, he was unblockable.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of construct the defense
around
what he was doing, right? Terrell Farley was a fantastic player, nose for the ball, but we couldn't do what we did schematically without Jason Peter commanding a double and
letting Terrell run free.
Or being opposite Wistrom.
Yeah, that helps.
That helps.
That does help.
That helps quite a bit, right? So allowing guys to do what they do well is something we talk about like, oh, duh. But it's not as easy. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, because you think, hey, this is my scheme. My scheme works. I need the guys that can play my scheme.
Yeah. You know how many times I'm tempted to say with Coach Queen or vice versa where, hey, just let him play man?
Some do it.
Then you have to get into.
Well, that's not our scheme.
Yeah. And are we
what are we with everybody else?
Yeah.
So are we?
It happens a lot.
Yeah, because you're negotiating. Okay, can this guy play zone 80% as well as he can play man, or is there somebody else we need to put in? Or if we let this guy play man, can the rest of our defense still play up to their standard with the rest of our scheme?
Like, I get why you like the D line in this scheme if they play that way.
Yeah.
Because you keep using the term disruptive.
Yeah.
You think they want to be much more disruptive.
I think they can be much more disruptive, and I think they will be much more disruptive. And the dirty little secret about that because Ken brought this up, he goes, they didn't play a lot of bump and run. I assume he means like press coverage, right? All of a sudden, you can play a lot more press coverage when you know your back end is not going to have to defend very long. Yeah. It's a lot easier to play. It's a lot easier to play at press coverage when your guy got.
And I know that used to drive people crazy, right? It's 3rd and 6, and they're 8 yards.
They give them 7 yards, right?
And they give ground.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's because they don't know if the guys are getting home or not.
Yeah,
you know those guys are getting home with 5. Like, yeah, you can play pretty tight.
You play it different.